historical fiction is where it's at, basically. Good books, good stories, great. So, first I'm going to talk about historical fiction books that I have read and that I own, because there are some that I have read, but I loaned it from the library, so I don't have them. That's how libraries work. So, basically, in the order that I have read them, The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. This is really, really harrowing and really great. I like it a lot. It's if you don't know, it's set in Nazi Germany, and it follows a little girl called Liesel, and this girl she steals books. That's where the name Book Thief comes from, and this book is narrated by Death, so it's really, really interesting. And because it's Nazi Germany, it's also really, really sad, in my opinion. Next is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. This is set in the 18th century, and it follows a guy named Monty and his best friend Percy, who he's in love with, and Monty's sister. And it basically follows them on their grand tour, and then stuff goes really wrong and they have to adventure throughout Europe, basically. It's really interesting, it's so fun. Percy and Monty are such idiots, but they are my sons, and I do love them. So the next is the sequel to The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, and it's The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy, also by Mackenzie Lee. This follows Monty's sister Felicity when he also goes to travel across Europe, but this one has, you guessed it, a lot more piracy. Yeah, that's the word. And I really like this book. It has a lot of strong female characters, and overall it's so great. This isn't as infuriating as the first one, because in the first one I was constantly mad at Monty for being such an idiot. Next is And I Darken by Kirsten White, and Now I Rise by Kirsten White. It's in a trilogy, and I haven't read the third one yet because the bookstores only have the slightly taller and glossy editions, and I have the matte floppy editions, and I don't want the third one to be different, so I haven't read the third book for what, like a year now. And it's not my problem, it's the bookstore's problem. So these books are set in 15th century Europe, and more the eastern part of it, like southeastern, and it follows Lada and Rodrigo, two siblings who again go around Europe, and there's a lot of politics and all the drama and death, and it's so much, but I like it so much, and I really want to read the third book. And this is not a lot of information about them, but yeah, they also have a friend called Mehmet, who, you guessed it, is the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire? I'm not sure. Around Turkey, you know, and they're conquering Constantinople, and it's a lot, and I like it, and it hurts me, and it's really, 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 really great. So, now onto the books. that I have read and liked, but I don't own them. The first one is The Boy in Striped Pajamas by John Boyne. It's more of a children's book or middle ground, but it's still really harrowing because it's a story about a young boy, and his father is an officer in Auschwitz, and the boy becomes friends with one of the Jewish boys in the camp, and they talk to offense, and it's for being a children's book, it's really sad. Yeah, that's the word. Next is Codename Verity by Elizabeth Wayne, whatever. And again, Nazi time for some reason. But this one follows an English girl named Queenie, and then one of her friends. And this whole book is basically told through letters. And this is the first historical fiction book that I ever read, and it was really great. It's more adult, given that the other books so far have been quite YA oriented, but I strongly recommend it. It punches you in the gut. Next is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, which is by Benjamin Alira Seans. I'm pretty sure I got that wrong, but yeah. This is, I think, more contemporary because it's set in the 60s, but it's still kind of historical fiction to me because it wasn't written in the 60s. So yeah, it follows two boys who meet at a swimming pool and then become friends, and a lot goes on in that book. And I love my boys. I love them. Ari and Dante are really great, and it's told throughout like 2 years or so, I believe, and it's gives you insight to the community and the societies in the 60s in America. Next are the books that aren't completely historical fiction because they deal with time travel in one way or another, sort of like that. So the first series here is the Ruby Red trilogy by Kirsten Gier, and it's set in modern day England, I believe, if I remember correctly. And it basically talks about time travelers and all that stuff. I don't remember a lot of this series because I read it quite a lot of years ago, but I do remember loving it. And there was a lot of secrets and mystery involved in the plot, and I found that really, really interesting. And lastly, we have The Next Together and The Last Beginning by Lauren James. Uh, the first book is a lot covered in mystery because these two people, Catherine and Matthew, are like born again and again, and they always find each other and fall in love, but they're always mysteriously dying, if I think so. And this book keeps you guessing about what is going on and how are they finding each other and how are they starting to remember being with each other in previous lives. It's really, really interesting. And without giving away a lot about the ending of this one follows Chloe, and she does travel back in time, like quite literally. And along the way, she meets another girl who can somehow also travel back in time, or not just back in that time, through time. So there's another mystery for us, and I really like this book more than the first one because I don't know, uh, spoke to me more, I guess. So that was all of the historical goodness I have for you today. Hope that I got you excited for at least one of those books and you want to read them because they're all really great. I like them a lot. And yeah, have a good time reading.